G'day, and welcome to the first episode for the spring. And what an absolute banger I have lined up for you today. Before I get started, I just wanted to acknowledge the New South Wales Police Force members who are doing it a little bit tough right now with the changes involving their TPD. The changes are incredibly significant and will affect thousands of staff. I actually can't believe what is happening here, and I just wanted to send my love and support to you all, whether you are already in the process of leaving, have very recently left, or if you're someone who's decided to stay. I see you all. I know how difficult this entire process is, no matter where you fall within it. Please, if you haven't already sought help, please do so. Again, no matter if you've left or if you're staying, it's never ever a bad time to check in with a GP or a psychologist. Emergency, the charity, have been working incredibly hard over the last couple of weeks to support those who are leaving. So please reach out to them for guidance. If you're not already a member, head over to join. It's completely free. I know that Alana and Pia will welcome you with the widest of arms, as will the rest of the emergency community. It's strictly a no judgment zone, which is amazing. You can check out the show notes. I'll link to their website, and you can also download their app from the stores wherever you get your apps from. Today, I have Jye Martyn, who has come to share his journey. After nearly 12 years in the Royal Australian Air Force and being medically discharged in 2019 with a life-changing back injury, Jye started volunteering in the veteran community. Since then, he's volunteered for several ex-service organisations and worked part-time for Soldier On as a programs officer in the Newcastle and Hunter area. Jye has first-hand experience in how sport can positively impact lives and improve health and well-being. After his spinal surgery, Jye thought he wouldn't be able to play sport ever again. He's currently back in the gym, playing golf and coaches junior football, all of which have had a positive impact on his life. A sport fanatic, he enjoys football, golf, cricket and rugby league, just to name a few. And in his spare time, you will find him coaching his kids' football team or cooking for his family on one of his many barbecues. This conversation with Jye left me feeling incredibly inspired, and I hope that it does the same for you. The conversation does come with a content warning. Within our conversation, Jye and I will talk briefly about his suicide attempt. So if this is something that you need to be mindful of, please look after yourself and do what you need to do to feel safe. Welcome to Triumph Beyond Trauma, the podcast that explores journeys of resilience and hope. I'm Rosie Skeen, a yoga and breathwork teacher and founder of Tactical Yoga Australia. As a former soldier's wife, mum to 3 beautiful kids and a medically retired New South Wales police officer with PTSD, I understand the challenges of navigating mental health in the first responder and veteran community. Join us for incredible stories from individuals who've confronted the depths of mental illness and discovered their path to happiness and purpose, as well as solo episodes and expert discussions. Together, we'll uncover the tools to help you navigate your journey toward a brighter, more fulfilling life. Whether you're looking for helpful insights, practical tips, or just a friendly reminder that you're not alone, Triumph Beyond Trauma has got your back. You matter, and your journey to a happier, more meaningful life starts right here. Welcome to the podcast, Jye. It's such a pleasure to have you on. Usually I just start with, a bit about your background and how you came to join the Air Force. So if you'd like to walk us through that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so my journey like to now kind of starts, obviously as a young child. And my dad is ex-military. He served in the Royal Australian Air Force for 20, 30 years or so. I've done a lot of time with reserves as well. And as a young child, he worked on F-18 Hornets. And as a young child, I used to go to work to pick him up of an afternoon after school. And he'd take me around the aircraft every now and again. And I'd get to have a look at these amazing kind of just machines, really, these amazing aircraft. And so as a young kid, when kids were out there looking at police cars and fire trucks and all that, I was looking at F-18 Hornets.
Yeah.
So from a very young age, that's all I ever wanted to do, is to work on those. I didn't care what I did. I just knew my goal and my career path was always going to lead to working on F-18s. And I was lucky enough to achieve that goal at the age of 18. I joined straight out of school and was accepted. My time from calling up defence recruiting to being in Wagga recruit training was about 3.5 weeks to 4 weeks. I just got lucky. with the course of the trade that I chose, and there was an intake, and they needed a few extra people, and I was accepted into the military before I even done my fitness test. So yeah, it was a very quick turnaround and quick goodbyes to the family and everybody back home. But yeah, I took straight off to Wagga, and my journey started there.
Yeah, wow, that's such a quick turnaround. How did your parents deal with that?
The parents were fine. I was in a relationship as well, and that I think me going away at that time actually saved the relationship. And because of that, I have two beautiful daughters now. I ended up marrying my now ex-wife, but marrying Danielle and having two children a few years later. But yeah, the family was very supportive. I was the oldest of three, and just, yeah, I think dad was really proud of, one of his children following his footsteps, and mum, obviously a little bit, um, I think she was sad to see me go. But the interesting thing about all of that was, as a young child, I wasn't actually allowed to play with weapons. My mum had a real weird thing about guns and even water pistols. Like I felt deprived, to be honest. And I remember one Christmas, for example, we got water pistols off my auntie, and being summer, we wanted to use them, and mum got rid of them on
Yeah.
Christmas Day. So there's a little bit of early trauma for you, I guess. But um, so when I joined, I think it was much to her disgust that I actually joined as an armored technician. So my job in the military was involved around weapons, and weapons on the F-18 itself. So I don't know if it was payback to my mum for not letting me play with them, or I used to send her pictures later in my career when I actually finished my training. I sent her pictures of me sitting on 2,000-pound bombs and holding a missile and all that kind of stuff. And used to send them home to her just to, I don't know, maybe
Stir up a bit.
cheer her up. Yeah.
Wow. So how was training for you?
Training was a little bit difficult. I wasn't the smartest in the room, and we're on the first course armament technician in 17 years. So when we
Oh,
got to Wagga, after I finished my recruit training, which I look back on with fond memories. It wasn't a horrible time. It was challenging, and then we got tested, and we learned pretty quick that the recruit phase was a bit of a game, and you were always going to lose.
yeah.
So once you kind of realize that, the pressure of it, or the um, or I guess the pressure of trying to impress the recruit instructors, it almost went out the window a little bit, because you knew you were never going to do it, but you just had to do your best. And if you did your best, that's, you just carried on. So I really enjoyed the kind of recruit training, as challenging as it was. And then the training itself to become an armored technician at Wagga was about 16 months. Yeah. So I struggled academically during the course over the 16 months at Wagga. I did get through it and had a lot of support there. Had some great people around me, and yeah, I enjoyed my time. It was, back when the boozer on base had $2 beers. I think I spent more time up there than I did studying. So there's a little bit of a distraction, but it, that potentially led to, some problems a little bit around alcohol, maybe a little bit later in life as well. That drinking culture that was on the base back then. The fact that alcohol was so cheap and readily available to the trainees, I guess. And we had no responsibilities. We lived a couple of 100 meters away from the boozer, and uh, had the pressure of, we're sitting in a classroom all day and just looking forward to getting to the boozer at night. But it was a great experience, and I was really glad to actually leave there, because I got posted back home. So my first posting was back to RAF Base Williamtown, and got to get straight onto the aircraft that I dreamt of working on.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I know that culture within the defence force and even policing as well. I mean, for New South Wales, they got rid of the boozer at the academy, and I think probably for good reason. But there is definitely the culture within the defence force around drinking. I think it's something to look forward to at the end of the day, especially if you're living on or training, like you said.
But the drinking culture, I've been out for a few years now, but it was still very prominent when I was in, back in 2000, and I got out in 2019. I think it's changed a little bit now. As people I talk to, the serving personnel, it doesn't seem to be what it used to be. But I can't really speak to the trainees and the recruit phase that people go through when they get in.
Yeah, yeah. So you went to Williamtown first. Is that where you stayed for your career, or did you move around?
No, I did 4 years on the Hornets and worked at a place called Two Operational Conversion Unit. And yeah, got my trade there and went through. And then in 2000 and the end of 2013, or throughout 2013, I had an opportunity to apply for a posting into bomb disposal. So I actually moved to Sydney with my family and went down to Penrith and got off aircraft and went onto the green side of the trade, they call it, and started to learn how to blow bombs up instead of putting them on aircraft.
Oh, okay. So what do they mean about the green side?
Well, there was the blue and the green side. So the green side was on the ground, working on explosives on the ground, and the blue side was working on munitions that would go up into the sky.
Okay, that
So it was just a way, it was just our kind of lingo for differentiating the two different sides of our trade, the blue side and the green side. And, I spent 4 years in bomb disposal from 2014 through to the end of 2018, which then at the end of my posting there, I served on 2 operations, and the last one was at the end of my posting. And at the end of the deployment, I was actually posting back to Newcastle to go back work on aircraft again.
So you spent 12 years in the Air Force. Do you have any significant events that you wanted to talk about within those 12 years?
Yeah, it was a career, had plenty of highlights, plenty of things that happened. My time in bomb disposal was probably more adventurous, um, more kind of fulfilling for me in the work that I did there. As I said earlier, I went on 2 different deployments. One over to Bougainville, where I was part of a team that we were sent over to Bougainville to get rid of or to clear remnants of war from World War II. And so we'd actually went kind of trekking through the island, over the island of Bougainville, and looked for different munitions that were left there from the Americans, and got rid of them. So we'd blow them up, or we'd get them out to the ocean, and the Navy divers would go down and blow them up under the water. And the whole job there was to kind of make the area a bit more safer than it was. So there was reports of people dying over there with either just touching the explosives or doing, playing silly buggers with them, as the kids do. But they see a grenade, think it's a ball, and they'll throw it. So yeah, we went over there, and that was probably out of everything I did in the military, that was probably the proudest thing, or the thing I'm most proud of my service was being on that island and clearing stuff from World War II. At the end of my deployment, at the end of my posting of bomb disposal, I deployed over to the Middle East and went over into an assistant base armament manager role. So I was a part of a 2-man team that looked after the explosives on the base in Dubai. And we were also the IED response for that base. Luckily, we had no real jobs, we weren't busy at all, which was great. So I spent 6 months over in the Middle East, in that part of the world, and away from the kids, and got to experience, the deployment side of the military. And so I spent 6 months there, but that's when my wife kind of went into a different direction. So I ended up injuring my back when I was in Dubai. So while I was over there, I found a love for weightlifting, and there's something about lifting heavy things, and then the next day lifting heavier things was quite addictive. So being away from the family, that was a way I kind of dealt with my mental health and helped me through that deployment. And then one morning I did my normal warm up. I was lifting weights that were well in my range, and I wasn't doing anything silly. Had all the right protective equipment on, and for some unknown reason, my L5S1 disc decided to herniate and to, I guess, rupture or spread across my back a little bit. And And yeah, I thought in that moment, I thought I'd broken my back. So I was to kind of paint the picture a little bit. I was in the gym, in the squat rack. There was only one other person in the gym, and he was in the back corner with noise cancelling headphones on, mopping the floor. And I was in a really weird position where I'd thrown the bar off my back after it happened. I was laying with one arm over the barbell and one arm over the safety rail on the squat rack. And I was in a really weird position that people aren't in when they're in a squat rack. And I was screaming. Again, I thought I'd broken my back. The pain was very, very hard to describe. The only thing I think that in that moment that stopped me from actually going into shock or trying to create a little bit of relief for me was I could wiggle my toes. And I kind of talked to myself through it. If I can wiggle my toes, I haven't snapped my spine.
Yeah.
I was squatting, obviously, in the squat rack, and had about 142 kilos on my back. And as I said earlier, like it wasn't anything that I couldn't do. A couple of weeks earlier, I'd done 180. So I was strong enough to do that weight, and just something went wrong. And yeah, eventually the cleaner saw me in a really weird position and in a lot of, obviously seeing I was in a lot of pain. So we came running over and then got the medical team to come out, and yeah, they assessed, they gave me the green whistle, and I went into the medical center. I, I still kept my humor a little bit in that moment when I was in the medical center though, because of my job over there, I was IED response. I thought it'd be fun to send my now ex-wife a picture of my hand with an IV drip in it with no explanation, just the photo. Um, she didn't appreciate it very much. Obviously, really worried about her husband over in the Middle East and with an IV drip in. But yeah, I thought it was funny. Maybe it was the morphine or whatever they were giving me. But they they kind of tried to patch me up a little bit. I spent a night in the medical center, and then the next day, once I was walking around a fair bit, they put me back to my room. And a week later, I had a scan. Went into Dubai and had a full scan done and assessment. And yeah, when I got back to the medical center, they had the results, and it was clear to say that my L5S1 disc had indeed ruptured. I got originally told that it was going to be a 6-month kind of recovery. When I got home, I got home a week later. So I had the result, scan the week after the injury, and then a week after the scan results, I was on the next plane and I got sent back to Australia. And which was hard. I wanted to, finish that deployment with everybody that was over there with the unit that I went with. I realized since that with my back, I thought, this is maybe something I'll never get to do again. So it was really hard to kind of leave, and the friendships that we formed over there all became quite a close group. And yeah, it was really hard to kind of leave, but I was also coming home to see my kids and that. So that was exciting to do that. But yeah, that's when my rehab kind of journey started, was when I got home, and my life from there kind of took a, a bit of a toll where I was in medical waiting rooms. I felt like 6 to 12 months. I remember almost if not every day, every second day, seeing a different specialist or a different medical professional, whether I had a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a spinal surgeon, I had a pain specialist, I had an exercise physiologist, I had a GP, I was doing hydrotherapy. It was just every second day, I felt like I was supposed to be somewhere waiting in a waiting room, waiting to get told different stuff and get help, I guess. So that became really, and I even struggle with it now. Like, it's something that I remember only recently I went and saw just a physiotherapist, sorry. And I remember coming out of that appointment, and I just was just struggling a little bit, going, I just don't want to keep going. Like, I can't. It just brought everything back from that period in my life. And it's something I know I'd love to go and, I need to go and do more like physio and stuff like that. But the commitment part of it is quite challenging because of that. It brings back a lot of stuff from that time in my life. But yeah, I had about 12 months of rehab. I was doing as much as I could do. And then I eventually decided on spinal fusion surgery after the sciatic pain that I was experiencing got a lot worse than what it was. So I felt like I wasn't getting any better. And the surgeon said, I can get rid of your I can get rid of your sciatic pain, but I can't guarantee I'll get rid of your back pain. And in that moment, I, I'd come to learn the difference between the two. And I told him that I can live with back pain, but I can't live with sciatic. And if he can guarantee that he'll get rid of sciatic pain, that's enough for me. Yeah. Whereas then in 2019, I committed and I went into have L5S1 spinal fusion surgery. I'm really glad to say I feel like it's been a success.
Wow, I can't even imagine that journey that you would have been on. I mean, to wait in waiting rooms for any and just a GP visit is exhausting. Um, so to have one, every day or every other day, that would have taken an emotional toll on anyone, I reckon. So just what you were saying there though, with going to say even just a physio now and it bringing back those feelings, what was going on for you then, with your mindset and having to go to all those appointments all the time and also having a family?
Well, when I got home from my deployment, I kind of took on even though I was injured and my mobility wasn't great and I was in pain, I was on strong painkillers, I kind of took on the stay-at-home dad role. So I had my now Danielle, my now ex-wife, she was working full-time. And usually it happens when partners deploy for 6 months, the people who stay at home, they create a routine, they create a life without their partner who's overseas. So when I came home, I found it quite hard to actually adjust into that routine, especially because I wasn't going to work. So I became, the stay-at-home dad. I'd done the cooking, the cleaning. I actually grew an appreciation for what someone who's a stay-at-home parent does because I had to live it for a significant amount of time. So, that helped me appreciate what she was doing, and it gave me a different look on. I learned how to keep a house. So, when eventually our marriage broke down and I moved into my own place, I feel like I had probably the cleanest and nicest house for a single dad that was around, right? So going to those appointments I had to fit them in around school pickup and drop off. And so it provided me somewhere to be instead of sitting at home, but it wasn't where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I kept getting told that I wasn't feel like I was getting any better either. So the pain specialist, I had different procedures done that just flared things up. It didn't actually help. So then I was supposed to be going somewhere to get better and I was getting made worse. So I just, and it was just hard to kind of continue to show up to these things. And then I was going to hydrotherapy and I was in a pool with, 80-year-old ladies and, men. And I was by far the youngest person in that area, in that pool. And even just being in there was really hard because it was like, is this my life now? You know, am I, is that going to be me still when I'm in my 80s, having to do this? And the fact that I have to do it now, there's not many, I was only 29, I think 28, 29 when this was happening. I'm like, there's not many people in their 20s had to do hydrotherapy for a back injury.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for my future? So, and again, it wasn't getting any better. So one, it was providing me somewhere to be, but again, it wasn't where I wanted, but it was just, again, when you go see a health professional, all your hope is in that they're going to make you better. That wasn't happening for me. I did get great. It's like I had a great psychiatrist, a great psychologist that was helping me process my new life and try to process the injury. And so that was helping. But in saying that, I did eventually go down, I had a real challenge with mental health a little bit later. 2019 was not a good year for me with the surgery. So that actually led to me going into hospital. had an in-stay for 4 weeks, but I had a great team around me, I had great support. So I was lucky with that. And the fact that I had been productive, like as soon as I got off the plane from Dubai, I think it was on a Thursday, but on the Monday morning, I was in medical at the RAF base, and they were like, "Right, we're booking you psychologist appointments. Here's a psychiatrist. Here's everything. Like you need this." It was, you might not even realize you need it now, but you need to have it.
Yeah.
So they were very productive and proactive and got me the help that I needed because they knew that I was going to need it, and I did.
Yeah. From being so active and lifting weights, like doing that to, get you through your deployment and obviously being without your family and then having this injury where I guess everything like that has stopped
Yeah, well,
at
what
that.
happened was, I didn't say this earlier, but the night before my injury, I was actually looking up strongman competitions in Newcastle and Sydney to see what was around because, again, I found a love for this. And it was like, I want to keep doing this at home. And a way for me to do it at home was to actually have something to work towards. So I was Googling, strongman competitions, and I'm like looking at these photos and these competitions going, I'm never going to win. But it wasn't about winning. It was about doing the work to compete in it and actually being able to go. And so I distinctly remember that feeling the next day going like, there's no point to that now.
Yeah.
Even the next day when I was laying in the hospital bed, I'm like, well, I think that's over. Like that was a very short-lived dream of maybe I could get into strongman comps. And so, but then another thing that was taken away straight away was the fact that because I was supposed to come home in March or April was around that time, maybe the end of March. I'd actually already registered for a soccer football team. So when I came home from my deployment, it was a team that I grew up playing for and a bunch of guys I'd played with before I went to Sydney in 2014. So they were playing again in 2018 and I had registered and then injured my back. So again, straight away when I got off the plane, it was just another thing that was taken away immediately. So sport was such a huge part of my life and it, to have it taken away, in such a way, it was really hard to really handle that and accept it. But I think it is almost the driving force to why I do what I do now.
Yeah. So 2019, that's the year that you did have your surgery. What happened after that?
Well, in 2018, my marriage broke down. So I got home from my deployment. I wasn't the same man, right? I was broken, both physically and mentally when I returned, and my marriage struggled with that. And I, my marriage kind of, it really suffered and I have no harsh feelings or words or anything to say of my ex-wife, and I got to a point where I understood why she left. So the resentment and the hate and all of that negative type of stuff that happens with divorces was gone. So I think it was quite a what's the word? And it was such the weight was lifted off.
Yeah.
Once that negative stuff's gone, it's like you can just move on, I guess. So it broke down in 2018, and to add a little bit of, you know, funny, I guess, to this is it actually broke down 4 weeks prior to my brother marrying her sister.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So 4 weeks after my marriage broke down, I had to watch then my ex-wife walk back down the aisle. So uh, it was hard.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that wedding actually led to a bit of a reconnection almost, and we tried again after the wedding, and we came together and we tried to get things back on track for our two kids and for us. And so that's when in 2000, so that was over the Christmas of 2018, and then into 2019, it was early in the year when I committed to doing the surgery. So I had surgery, I think in February of 2019. And then by Easter, the marriage was over again. And but this time for good. It was done. So that led to I was in a really dark place, and it actually led to a situation where I did try to take my own life. I did have what I call it an attempt. I it was obviously not successful, or you know, I didn't get as far as what I was trying to get to, but I remember, very distinctively my father and his partner, who's a nurse, picking me up um, in that really dark moment and taking me back to their house. And then I think 2 days later, I was in hospital for 4 weeks. And that's where my life really started to turn around a little bit. I struggled with it. I knew I needed to be there. I felt like I hit rock bottom, to be honest. I heard only recently, someone try to explain that there's no such thing as a rock bottom. There's only as far as you think you could go.
Yeah.
Um, that was my bottom, I guess.
I mean,
That's where
I don't think you'd want to go any further.
no,
I don't think.
no,
Yeah.
it was pretty horrible. And looking back on it, it's, I feel like it's almost like I realized that there was nowhere for else for me to go. Like it was either people tried to tell me, right, you've hit the bottom back then, you've hit the bottom. So the only place is to go up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went into hospital in Toronto, the private hospital there. And yeah, I started my journey on, I guess my mental journey, or on recovery, really my mental recovery. I already had the surgery. My sciatic pain was gone. The surgery was quite successful. I was back moving around, relatively well after the surgery. And again, the sciatic pain was gone. So I saw it as a success. But then, the marriage broke down. I went into hospital. And while I was in hospital, so again, I was an armored technician, and we were known throughout the Air Force as having, being the party kind of trade. We were the guys that would lead the party, lead the charge into, going into town and really doing all that. So when I stood in front of sat in front of a psychiatrist, and they said to me, you need to stop drinking. And I laughed. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, you need to stop drinking for 12 months. And I laughed again. And I was like, my marriage has just broken down. This is when men really drink. Like, I need alcohol to get through this. And she's like, no. And she actually threatened me. So back then, some people might think it's not a good thing, but it worked for me. So she actually said to me, if you don't stop drinking for 12 months, I am potentially going to diagnose you with bipolar. And if I diagnose you with bipolar, you'll be medically discharged from the military, and they won't take responsibility for your mental condition. But if you do stop drinking for 12 months, I will, and you prove to me that your mood swings that you're experiencing are from alcohol, not bipolar, because she couldn't work it out. She couldn't work out whether it was alcohol-induced mood swings or if it was bipolar. So she's like, you need to prove to me that it is alcohol. And if you do, you'll be diagnosed with something else, and you'll be medically discharged for your back, and you'll receive the benefits of a medical discharge for your back injury. And I was like, wow. Took a bit to sink in. And people might think it's harsh, just to threaten me to diagnose with a mental condition like that, but it worked. So I was given a drug called antabuse, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but what it is, it doesn't do anything to you. It's not a mood stabilizer or anything like that, from what I understand. You just take it every day, and what happens is it sits in your system, and if you drink, it then creates a feeling of nausea. You can throw up. It makes you sick.
Yeah, okay.
So people who are struggling with addiction are given this drug to take. And again, voluntarily, you don't have to take it. People aren't going to know if you do or not. The psychiatrists aren't going to know. But if you really want to do the work, it helps you. So I took that for a period of time, never tested it. Some people do.
Yeah.
Um, but I had come to realize through my time in hospital that if I wanted to be one, if I wanted to have the relationship with my kids that I wanted, if I wanted to become the man that they deserve to call their father, if if I wanted any chance of having them on my own or having them 50-50, which is what I wanted, I had to prove to my ex-wife as well that I was not drinking. So I was fairly committed. Um, I, I'm proud to say that from the time of just after Easter of 2019, I did not drink for 18 months.
Wow.
I got to the 12-month mark and I didn't feel ready. So I felt like if I drank, it would have almost undone all the work that I had done. So I eventually was 18 months and I felt comfortable that it actually changed. And the reason for 12 months, I asked her that. I was like, why 12? Like, why not 6?
Yeah.
Give me a break. And
Yeah,
she
please.
said 12 months was because I had to experience every major event in a
Yeah.
calendar year and not drink through it. So that's Anzac Day, Christmas, Easter, birthdays, anything, that as Australians we celebrate, and usually alcohol's involved. So I had to do all that sober. Again, I'm really glad I did, because over that 18 months that I did, I actually proved to myself that I didn't need alcohol to have fun, and that was my addiction. It wasn't that I drank every day or that I drank too much, in my opinion. It was the fact that I was reliant on it, that I didn't feel like I could unwind. I didn't feel like I could relax or have fun at social gatherings or anything like that. And I couldn't, once I started, it was really hard for me to stop. And so I didn't know where that point was of, no return when you have, if you stop, you're generally good. If you have one more, you're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where that point was. So over the 18 months, I actually learned I didn't need it to, I still experienced a bit of social anxiety, but I learned to deal with it without alcohol and in other healthier ways. So as much as that psychiatrist was pretty harsh, and she, I think she saved my life in a way, because if I didn't stop drinking, if I didn't make a commitment like that to stop drinking, I don't know where I'd be today, because I would have kept going and it would have got worse.
Yeah. And obviously she knew, like she knew that that was the case with your
Yeah.
alcohol consumption. So that's why she
Yeah.
did make such a threat to you, I guess. And
And
I guess she had to know as well that she was making the right diagnosis.
yeah, 100%. And the really positive thing that I love, um, I feel, even a little bit proud of, and she doesn't even know this, but she's still working in the Newcastle area, and she had started now referring her clients to my groups that I run for the veteran community. So it's, for me personally, I don't know if she knows that they're mine, but she knows that they're Invictus Australia's. But
Yeah.
yeah, to know that my old psychiatrist who helped me through so much is now actually referring people to come to me and to get support through my organization, which is pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a yeah. I was
So
gonna
the
say
full circle thing.
it is a full circle, yeah. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. You described to me before we had this chat that you don't hate your back injury and it's not a disability. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when because I did my injury in defense, and I was, because even though I was in the gym, I was technically working. I had to be fit, I had to be strong to wear a bomb suit and all that. So I had to be in the gym. They technically classed it as work. I, I was compensated, I guess, and because of my medical discharge, I was compensated with that as well, and got some entitlements. So what happened is I guess because of, again, what happened at the end of 2019 is I actually medically discharged. So that was everything happens in threes, right? So I was
Yeah.
divorced. I had spinal surgery. I was divorced, and then I got medically discharged all in 2019. But what happened is because it was in that order. So it was, yeah, spinal injury, so spinal surgery, divorce, and hospital, and then discharge at the end of 2019. Because I was sober at the end, to like from the whole second half, I guess, of 2019 and then into 2020. I was I was at a point where I had to make a lot of decisions, right? Because I was medically discharging, and there was a lot of stuff happening around that.
Yeah.
A lot of different decisions had to be made, and compensation was getting received, and money was coming in, and all of that kind of stuff. So being sober actually allowed me to make some really smart decisions around planning for my future in a way that I don't know if I would have made if I was drinking. So, and then COVID hit
Yeah.
later. Yeah, but the medical discharge, I was at a fork in the road, right? So I was like, all right, I could hate my situation. I could hate what's happened to me, or I could try to make it be productive in it and actually use it use the benefits and entitlements and actually try to do something positive, right? And so I actually went to psychology. I went to university and studied first year psychology. I wanted to, I guess, use my experience to help others. And I thought I was always interested, and still am, about why people do what they do
Yeah.
and
Same.
what's the driving force behind it. So I thought psychology would be perfect. So I went and I started studying at university prior to actually getting out of the military. So I was at uni at the end of 2019 doing a foundations course, which then got me enrolled. I was able to enroll into psychology at the start of 2020. And so I was really proud of that. I never thought I'd go to uni. And it was probably one of the first positive directions or positive choices I made after my back injury. And what I've been able to do since my injury is almost turn it into a positive. So you're going to university, what it did for me was allow me to enter another big organization. I was surrounded by people. And like-minded people too. We were studying psychology. I went from one big organization to another. So it's one of the things people struggle with when they discharge is leaving a big organization or a big family, big support group, and then actually what they got nothing after that. Right? So I submerged, literally myself into uni, surrounded myself with some really amazing people that I'm still friends with now. I actually met my fiance through a friend I made at uni. My fiance is her auntie.
Yeah. That's
So it's all worked out. There's another positive, but the I've just been able to make positive choices with it. I haven't really, what it's done is it's actually made to a point where I don't hate it. I don't look back and go, I wish I didn't have it, or I hate what happened to me, because I live in a beautiful house. I have a beautiful family. I have an amazing job. I have all these positive things around me because of my back injury. And if I didn't have it, I I wouldn't be here talking to you. Yeah. I wouldn't be doing the work that I do. I'd probably still be happy. I'd be probably still in the Air Force, probably be a sergeant by now and doing, traveling around doing other stuff. But I really enjoy what I do and the life that I have and the work that I do. And so it's almost like being a little bit, like just practicing a little bit of gratitude almost, where instead of hating what happened to me, I sit back and go, all right, it was a door closed, but one opened on the other side. When people dive into, I think that's one thing defense does is, you know, they're not, defense aren't great at preparing people for transition. And again, to be honest, I don't know, people might disagree with me, but at the end of the day, defence's job is to train people for war. It's to upskill them and get them ready to defend the country. And uh, their job isn't to then pull people back to their prior state of what they were before they went in, because at the end of the day, their focus is protecting the country. So I, in saying that, I think a lot more needs to be done in regards to supporting transition members. But if people really dive into it, there are so many entitlements and benefits that people can claim when they medically discharge to help support them in that. And some people, they use it, they get everything that they're entitled to, and some people don't. Because at the time of medical discharge, they might resent defence, they might hate it, they might hate what's happening to them, which is fair enough. Some people don't want to get out. And I experience this. I talk to people all the time that someone else has made a decision on their career and they're kicking them out for some reason. It's unfair. Some people want to be lifers. I wanted to be a lifer. I wanted to stay in forever. But some people, they struggle with it. And again, which leads to the veteran suicide rate, to being what it is. And now we've got the Royal Commission findings coming out very soon.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just about turning a shitty situation into a positive and trying to find the positive in it. And I did. And only recently, I just got back from Kokoda. I was able to go over with an amazing group of people and go and complete the trek and in 8 days. And when I was over there, the only thing that didn't hurt was my back. My lower back held strong and everything else hurt, my legs, shoulders, everything. But that was the only thing that didn't. And I come away from there going, if I can do that, if I can carry a pack and if I can walk that distance and do that terrain and that our soldiers did back in World War II, I can do anything. It's not a disability. I'm not actually, there's no barrier really. It's just something that happened to me. And now I can live without that. Obviously, there's still stuff I can't do. I'd love to go and run in the soccer field again and go and play. I'll turn 35 next year. So I was even talking to a guy last night about playing over 35s, which is crazy for me. But, I don't know if I can because of the running and the contact, but that's okay. But there's plenty I can do. And it was about finding that.
It's so powerful that what you're saying there, because it's all mindset, right? Like it's actually, I find it's a bit of a game within the mind that you have to play when you're going through something. I know my injury got me out of policing and I was definitely before I was ready to do so. Like you, I thought I would have promoted and been I didn't join to get out at 33 or 35, whatever it was. I joined to be in there till I retired and to walk out on my own terms, but that didn't happen for me. So of course there's that little bit of, I guess, bitterness, and it left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. And so sometimes I struggle with that still after, 7 years I did my last shift. And I still think I could have done so much more in that role, but I constantly play that game with myself going, yeah, but look at where you are now. I've almost come through the other side, and I get to talk to people like yourself and others that have done the same thing and come through and have a good life. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have my injury, and it's different to yours because it's not a physical injury. So physically I can do the things that I could do before, but mentally I struggle. So I can't, read a lot of text all at once, or my memory is really bad. So I have to constantly write things down, and sometimes I forget. I think I did it with you. Was I supposed to send you an email? I forgot. I didn't write that down. Where are we up to? So I do struggle daily, but I know that I'm better for it. I would never have seen a psychologist, and I'm so much better for having that support because it helps me navigate not only that injury, but other parts of my life where I might be struggling. So I can really empathize with that. And I think a lot of people might see it, as a weakness, but if you can have that mindset where this is a positive thing, and it's hard when you're in those dark times to be able to see that for sure. but you just got to stick with yourself, I think, and move through it and do what the professionals tell you to do, and trust that they've got your back. And I think a lot of people, I know when I talk to my psychiatrist, he says, you know, you're going to be all right because you have a good mindset and you can see that it's a positive thing. People that get stuck in that embitterment or blaming someone else or blaming an organization really struggle to come out the other side because of that. It holds them back a lot.
Yeah, I see it all the time in my work with veterans who have been poorly treated by DVA or poorly treated by defence. And it is sad, and it is about, and it's why I do what I do. It's why I contacted you and want to, I enjoy sharing my story. And because at the end of the day, it's, it is about mindset. And if someone hears this and goes, all right, you know, I'm in a pretty shitty spot right now, but someone else in a very similar situation was able to shift their mindset, look at it in a different light, and then move in that direction. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean it's always going to be positive. You know, I still have my dark days. I still have moments where I really struggle and with my mental health, but it's really about using the support that's around you, and yeah, try to shift your mindset to look at things maybe just a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on to what you are doing now, I've got one question in relation to veterans transitioning out. And what do you think are the most significant challenges they face in relation to discharge at the moment?
Well, so when you sign up, you sign up to serve your country, and you sign up to a new identity. You know, you either become an airman or a sailor or a soldier. You go through recruits, and and I'm not sure what the police one's like, but when you go through recruits in the military, it's very much, they break you down psychologically, which is, again, you're never going to win something. And then they build you back up to become the respective service that you're in. You know, you build you back up to an airman and the qualities that they want in an airman or a soldier, a seaman. So you change. You know, you really, you change the way you look at the world. You change the way you walk down the street. You change your appearance and all of that. So when you serve and people get ingrained in it, whether you do a year or you do 20, you identify as that service, right? Or as that person within the service. So when you discharge, it's really hard because you've got to let that go, right? And all of a sudden, when you meet someone new, when you're in service, you're like, hey, I'm Jye, I'm in the Air Force, you know? You know, and I'm sure it's very similar. Maybe, I don't know if policemen do it as well. You know, maybe don't want people to know that they're a copper off duty, but for guys in the military, it's pretty dominant when they meet someone new that's how they identify themselves, all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you discharge, you all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm Jye, I'm used to be in the military. Like, all of a sudden it's, you don't know how, like, because all of a sudden that's stripped away from you. And especially if you're medically discharged and you go out fighting, almost, it's stripped out away from you, away from your control, right? So there's people, and when we talk about discharging, not everybody struggles, right? There's a lot of successful discharges out there, and there's a lot of successful transitions, and some people handle it a lot better than others, right? But the medical ones are a little bit harder sometimes when the person doesn't want to go and they're being forced out. So one of the real struggles are around that identity, around how do I now identify it? I might be a lifer, I might be in for 30 years and all of a sudden I'm being kicked out. I might be in for 3 years wanting a 30-year career, and I'm, young. I don't know how to identify now. So that's why when I talk about my discharge, before I was even at that stage of saying, or not, I was still in service when I was at university. So that day that I was no longer in the military, I just became a student. So I'm like, hey, I'm a student studying psychology. And I been great. I pushed myself into that, right? But when someone doesn't have that, they really struggle to identify. Not everybody identifies as a veteran either. You know, I work in an office with two amazing women in here that served in the military but don't identify as veterans for their own reasons, and we've talked about it, but they're happy.
Yeah.
They're like, we did our time, we're doing this now, and we're not, we don't see, because we didn't go overseas or we didn't do this type of stuff, we don't actually see ourselves as veterans. So um, the other thing that people identify as purpose, I struggle with, is purpose, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just like the police. You've got a time and place to be somewhere, and you report to duty, and then you're on your shift. And same as the military, you're there every morning, or depending on what shift you're on, and you've got somewhere to be. You've got, a purpose. You've got a mission. For me, it was, all right, we've got to get the aircraft in the sky. We rock out to work every morning, and our thing was, all right, the aircraft is flying at 10 o'clock. We need to get them ready. For soldiers, it's they're going out field for 6 weeks, or they're going to do weapon stuff or whatever. They're training constantly for deployment. So that's their purpose. And again, when you take that away, they don't have one. They they might have had one for 10 plus years, and they get on the other side and they're like, what do I do now? And they really struggle in it. They're like, well, okay, I don't need to get dressed today. So and that's one thing that happened to me, right? When I came home from my deployment and I became a stay-at-home dad, I had a reason to get up out of bed every morning because I had the two young kids there. But then when they went to school, there'd be days there where I'd be sitting there at lunchtime and there'd be beer in the fridge, and I'd be like, I want a drink. And I the only reason I didn't is because I had to pick the kids up at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Then I would have a drink. Right? But purpose is, if people who don't have kids, or whether marriages are broken down, which is quite common in the military, their purpose is gone, and they struggle to find a new one. For me, it was going to university, re-educate myself, retrain. That was my purpose. So I my transition was a little bit different, and I see it as a successful one, because I feel like, and I tell people now, like, if you have the capacity, whether it's mental capacity, the work capacity, all of that, to go to university or go to TAFE, go to an education department and go somewhere to retrain and to just focus on something. Because when you go to uni or TAFE or somewhere, you're actually working something towards the future.
Yeah.
So for me, going to university was like, all right, I've got to get up out of bed because I want to be a psychologist, and I've got to work towards that. So yeah, it's really around the two common ones is identity, purpose, but then you've got camaraderie and that social connection kind of element that follows it. And the brotherhood and the connection that you get with people in the military, and I'm sure it's very similar with the police force. It's very unique. It's something that isn't really experienced, I think, on the outside in big corporate settings. But the camaraderie is real, and because everything inside is done as a team. And I'm sure that, yeah, it's similar in the police force, and you're probably
Yep.
very rarely ever alone. And in the military, you're generally working as a team of some sort. You've got supervisors, you've got corporals, sergeants, all that kind of supervising, and a bunch of guys working, or guys and girls, and working to do a job. And very rarely are you doing anything on your own. And so all of a sudden you might find yourself discharged, sitting at home by yourself. No,
Yeah.
you don't have your mates right there, right? But you have social media, and all of a sudden you see all the boys and the girls getting together on the weekend, have a barbecue, but you're no longer invited because you're not there. So that that social connection and that camaraderie is really is again, it's another really key thing that people really struggle with after they get out. Which is again why I guess there's so many organizations just like mine that are looking at trying to create that, and create purpose and create identity and create, social connection just through sport.
Yeah. That was going to be my next thing. How does sport help with all of those things? Because it really does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And there's research that backs all this up. And we did research only recently around sport and the benefits to mental well-being on it. But it just goes to what I was just saying about teamwork, right?
Yeah.
Sport provides, not all sport does. There's some sports out there, a lot of different sports that are solo, but team sports especially create that kind of camaraderie and that sense of belonging and that teamwork element back that someone might have lost if they'd taken the uniform off. So whether it's playing sport or volunteering, right? Volunteering, I volunteer. I'm a coach. I don't no longer play football, but I coach my daughter's team. So for me, that creates purpose, right? I identify as well as a coach. I coach in this league and with these kids. And so again, it provides me an opportunity to identify as that, identify, and provides me purpose of I've got to get home. I've got to pick the kids up. I've got to get back out to training. And my purpose now is to train and try to develop these footballers, these young girls as footballers the best I can. So volunteering in sport provides so many, positive benefits to that. It's almost replaces some stuff that you lose when, in the military. And I was talking to a guy last night at my daughter's football training, and he only plays over 35s football, and he goes, I absolutely love it. We play every Friday night. And then we rotate on whose house we go to afterwards for a barbecue and for the fire out the back and, a few beers. And I'm like, mate, that's why I do what I do. Like that. He literally explained to me the benefits of sport and benefits for him as an individual to someone who doesn't try to create this for other people. And I said, mate, it's, again, why I do what I do, because I try to get veterans into that,
Yeah.
and because it's so beneficial. We work with people who, just like myself, the doctor told me I'd never play golf again. And I sit there and I talk to people all the time who go, the doctor told me I can't run. The doctor told me I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm like, okay. I met a guy here in the office that I'm working in, and he said, I've got 4 ankle surgeries. And he was like, my doctor said I can't run. I can't play rugby union anymore. It's like, okay, well, let's look at wheelchair rugby union for you. Wheelchair, and next year he's going out and trying wheelchair union, and he's getting that camaraderie back. He's getting that sense of enjoyment that he thought he had lost because he can't play regular rugby union anymore, but he's now doing it in a wheelchair and he's having a great time. So sport is such a powerful tool, and there's something about sport in the military too, right? So it provides that competitive element that is kind of drummed into people that serve. So there's a common banner that Air Force is better than Navy. I don't say Air Force is better. I say Air Force is smarter. The smart people join the Air Force.
Is it because you get to stay in hotels and not have to
yeah. Well, there's always that. People, so you pick your hotel by the stars. I just say, look, we're just the smart ones. You guys can bag on us all you like. So everyone bags on the Air Force until they call in an airstrike. And then they need us. But there's that friendly banter and competitive kind of side to it. And it's the ADF sport, they always have Air Force, West Navy, Trans Army kind of competitions in sport while you're serving. So sport's such a, important element. It's such a big element in defense. And then again, you get out, it's gone. So we try to create opportunities for people to find that in the civilian community. So it's another important part of sport is veterans connect with other veterans because they have shared lived experience and they have a shared interest, right? Whether it's serving or they both joined in the Air Force or served in the Air Force, they can talk about something like that, right? When a veteran, let's say he or she goes to a barbecue that has no other veterans there, some of them will really struggle to make conversation with people or just connect with other people because they don't have, there's nothing there that's like a common interest or a common lived experience, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, let's say you get that same veteran and you put them on a football field, or this is football, for example. All of a sudden, you have that common interest already because they love football, they love football. So they come together, and that's the icebreaker that connects them together. It's not service, but it's the sport, right? And what happens there is it helps that veteran actually connect to their local community. And again, it's something that people really struggle with. I live in a street, that has, I didn't move far. I live about 8 minutes from the RAF base. I love it that much. But the street I live in has like 5 defence families, if not 6, live on it. Right? Um, I don't, any of them know that I'm former serving, but the rest of the houses, we all socialise out the front of my house or someone else's house. We all have a drink and play yard games and just socialise, cook up a barbecue and that. What we see is, and I was talking to a mate of mine, we saw it one day where literally the 3 Raffies that all live next to each other, they drove home, they pulled into their driveways, into their garages, shut the garage, walked inside, and you never saw them, right? Yeah. We're all there having a beer, so they could have come over, but none of them did, right? And they all just kind of secluded themselves in their houses. And I was looking at it going, was that me? Like, did I used to do that? And I just thought it was quite weird that no one in the street that is military is actually socializing with anyone else in the street, but everybody else is.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird kind of thing. But then sport, as I said, it helps you connect with the civilian community, right? And what we're trying to do in my work is I go out to the RAF base, go to the army base, go to different places around the state and promote across the serving community that if you make defense your everything, which they will ask you in,
Yeah.
they will one day, it might be 20 years, might be next year, like we don't know, 5 years from now, but they will kick you out. It's just a matter of time, whether you end with hopefully it's when you want, whether that's at retirement or whether it's after 20 years or whenever you're ready, right? But you don't know what's going to happen. I didn't know that my back was going to, blow out. So I try to tell people who are serving, don't have defense as your everything. Go out, join a local rugby league team, football team, squash competition, whatever it is, right? Park run on a Sunday morning, whatever it is, go and join something in your community which will allow you to connect with them. Because at the end of the day, defense will one day spit you out, but the football club won't.
Yeah.
Or park run won't, or, you'll still be accepted into that club, whatever sport you love. It doesn't have to be football, whatever it is, right? So go and connect in with that sport or that recreational group. Could be a hiking group. It could be whatever you enjoy, whatever what brings you joy. So just connect in with them, connect in with your community around you, because again, when defense no longer needs you, your community will still be there to support you.
Yeah. That's so true because I know my husband was in defense and a lot of them just wrap up everything into that. So, they work and socially, they've got families and the wives and partners and kids all play together and they have their social groups and it's all tied into that one thing. And even for the serving member when they leave, but the family as well, like it feels like everyone loses that community. So
Yeah.
you're right 100% in what you're saying. If you have that as well outside, that
Yeah.
transition will be so much, I guess, easier and less
Yeah.
brutal because you have another community that you can put yourself into.
Yeah. Well, sporting clubs are what we try to describe to people is, and I'm sure everyone's kind of seen it where, you've got a young family who there's a sickness in the family or someone's house burns down. Or there's a tragedy that kind of happens within the club. It happens more and more where clubs then rally all of their members and players, whatever they are, and tries to support that family, right? Whether it's fundraising, whether it's meals, whether it's whatever. The sporting clubs provide a level of support very similar to what ex-service organisations do. And I meet people all the time that actually want nothing to do with ex-service organisation, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But everyone, we're kind of designed to live in to be surrounded by people, right? We're not designed to live on our own. So if you don't want to be surrounded by veterans or an ex-service organisation who wants to support you, a local sporting club will do exactly the same thing. You know, they probably don't have DVA advocates to help you with DVA paperwork, but they will help you if you need it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we should start talking about your work right now. Like, even though we've touched on it a bit, but I would love to know how you became involved with Invictus Australia and how that came about.
Yeah, well, it all kind of started when I didn't even discharge again. 2019 was a big year. I looked around in the Newcastle area and it kind of was like there wasn't a whole lot for younger veterans. There was a lot of RSL sub branches around here, not many of them doing anything. And I kind of was looking for a young veterans group to kind of, I guess, more join myself, really. I knew I needed support. I knew I was a single dad. I was discharging. I knew I was going to struggle, and I just wanted to be proactive and go and find a group of people to help support me. Well, there wasn't many, or if any. So
Yeah.
I actually rang a charity that was prominent in other areas, but and targeted younger veterans. And I said to them, like, why aren't you guys in Newcastle? There's such a huge defence community here. There's a huge operational fighters like or RAF base. There's an army barracks. There's heaps of people that retire here. Why are people? Why is there not? Why isn't your charity here? And they go, we got no one to run it. And I'm like, we need a volunteer. And I'm like, I'm your man. So I just started. I actually created what I needed,
Yeah. That's
which
great.
I think a lot of people do. But I started just a simple coffee group and advertised it out. People come in, they get a free coffee and just sit down and chat. And I remember the first guy that sat across from me, I'm still mates with him to this day. And they've actually just gone through and him and his partner has got they've adopted a young girl and they've asked me to be the godfather of Lila. And it all stemmed from this, right? From building this friendship with this guy through this volunteering. And it's really cool. But I started there and just started showing up every once a week or once a fortnight it was, and just welcomed people in and just started chatting away. And then I eventually stopped volunteering there because I was studying full time, kids. I just burnt out a little bit. So I stopped volunteering. I had to take something off and I stopped that. It was still running, but I stopped running it. And then another organisation, seeing the work I was doing over here, they needed volunteers. So they approached me and I was like, no, I've just given up a volunteering opportunity
Yes.
and you want me to do another one. This one that I was going to volunteer for, they were a lot more, they were better set up. They had more support. So I wasn't actually going to run stuff on my own. I'd have people on the ground in Newcastle supporting me. And it wasn't a big commitment. So I agreed because it was a bit of an in really to the organisation. So I started volunteering with them. And I guess the organisation was Soldier On that I started volunteering with. And then that led to a job. So they started advertising for a paid role in the work that I was doing as a volunteer. So I applied, got given a job, started working for Soldier On. And my work there was literally around creating opportunities for social connection throughout the veteran community. So it was running family-friendly events, going to the movies, going quad bike riding, my first day of work was literally quad bike riding. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, how did I learn this? But I had this, amazing kind of job where I'd get to plan fun events for families to go and enjoy. But they were meeting other veterans and it was creating a veteran community. Well, we're just creating a veteran exclusive community, really. And there's benefits and there's negatives to that, right?
Yeah.
So I remember expressing to my boss back then that, can we work with a community group? Can we try to get veterans, we run an event with them, but actually have their members there as well. And we bring them over and we try to get them to mingle, I guess. And they said, no, like, no, we're creating, like their members wouldn't be allowed to be there. We can go to that venue, but it'd be veterans only. Like,
Yeah.
it's not what when I explained to her that veterans really struggle to adapt into the civilian community. So we could try to help with that. And they're like, oh no, it's not our job. Like, we're doing this, right? And I get it. But it might have been only a week or two later, I ended up having a conversation with the CEO of Invictus. And he literally told me about this opportunity with the organization that they were hiring in the Newcastle area for a regional manager for Northern New South Wales to try to connect veterans in with the civilian community. And I'm like, I was literally talking to my boss 2 weeks ago about trying to do that at Soldier On, and she said no. And now you're telling me I can do it with you. And they're like, yep. So I spent about 45 minutes on the phone to Michael Hartung, the CEO of Invictus, and I I wasn't aware at the time that that was actually my job interview.
Yeah, right.
So it's really cool to do a job interview when you don't know it is.
Yeah, it'd be
That
much
means you,
more relaxing, I think, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So um, I was kind of waiting on an email from that for a job interview,
Yeah.
and the next email I got was actually an offer. So I it's an amazing opportunity, and I'm very passionate about sport. I love it, and then to work in sport and to work in the veteran community and try to link them together was perfect for me. So yeah, that was kind of my road into this role, and I started at the start of last year. And yeah, the work it's been amazing. Some of the stuff I've been able to achieve and to do to date has been remarkable. I've done, so I was on Kokoda really recently, which was,
That was with Invictus?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we helped organize that event. I put my hand up to go and was successful in that. And I got to kind of support 13, 12 other people to achieve that as well. And then, I've had some really cool opportunities where, and it's part of the reason I do what I do, because there's some days which are amazing where I get to make phone calls to people for amazing opportunities. And I made one last year. We got approached by the New South Wales government with an opportunity to find a veteran in a wheelchair to send on the first flight, hot air balloon flight, um, for like accessible hot air balloon flight. So because it was in the Hunter Valley, it got handed down to me. So Michael rang me and he's like, "Do you know anyone in the Hunter Valley that's in a wheelchair, a veteran?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know a couple." And he's like, "Okay, well, we need to find someone for this. And can you make it happen?" And I thought, this is amazing. I get to ring someone and go, "Hey, do you want a free hot air balloon flight?" And I did. I found someone, and then we worked with him, and it took about 6 months because I had to build the basket and do everything. But once the day was finally selected, about 2 weeks out, I got a phone call from them going, "How much do you weigh?" And I'm like, "What?" And they go, "Well, we need your weight." And I'm like, "Why?" They go, "Well, because we're going to invite you to actually be a part of the flight." So next thing you know, a couple of weeks later, I'm up with him in the flight, going hot air ballooning through the Hunter Valley on such a special occasion where two people in wheelchairs got to go on a hot air balloon flight where they never thought they'd ever get to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was one real highlight. Kokoda was another. Anzac round this year, I got to ring an amazing individual in Sydney and see whether he wanted to read the ode at the Manly game, and stand in front of 19,000 people and read the ode in uniform. And hearing the people's voices on the other end of the phone when I get to kind of do this is real. It makes me look for more opportunities for it, and because I love creating these opportunities for people to connect with sport, but to have lasting memories with their family.
There's something pretty powerful in making other people happy, I think, and obviously you're getting that from your job, which, like, what a dream to be able to do that for work.
It is, and it was quite hard with the Manly thing because I'm a Manly supporter, and I wanted to read the ode.
Give it to someone else. Yeah.
to, to give it to someone else was a little bit tricky. I, I love the guy. I think he's amazing, and he was a very, very worthy recipient. And I stood with his wife on the field as he did that, and I had my arm around her because she was like in tears, and it was a real special occasion. So I was still there, still kind of on the field, which again was a remarkable experience for me. But yeah, it, those those opportunities, they're very special, and it's I'm just grateful that I'm in a job where I get to make those phone calls.
So special. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about with Invictus?
No, it's more. I've got my work life. I've got um, one thing that's a great support for me is my family now. I touched on earlier, like I have 5 children. I have two to my ex-wife, my partner, or my fiance now. She had two to a previous relationship. We've come together and had little Leo together, navigating life as a blended family with 5 children is quite difficult, but it's amazing and challenging all at the same time. It keeps me on my toes. We're getting close to the end of the season where we've had football for 7 days a week. So I literally drive home from work, grab one of the kids or two of the kids and put them in the car and drive to soccer training most days, which, you know, is great because I'm watching them develop. They play at a pretty high level here in Newcastle, so they train multiple times a week. So, we're a very sporty family, but I'm just grateful that, again, we're able to help provide that for my family and everything that, because of everything, I sit back sometimes and look at all the work that I've done, and it's been hard, but there's days where I sit back and go, it was so worth it. And it's, it's kind of, it drives me to want to, again, share it with others to go, yes, there's going to be hard days. Yes, the work is hard, but on the other side, it's so worth it. And um, there's so many different people in different situations. Not everyone is as fortunate as I am, or they've been in, they've got worse situations. But with the support that's around them, there are people out there that generally care and generally want to support them. And I just encourage people to, if they're struggling with anything post, whether it's discharging from the military or from being on the front line, with police and ambulance and fireys and all of that, if they're struggling with something, they need to reach out. They need to go and have a beer with a mate or a coffee. Don't, obviously, if alcohol's a problem, don't go and have a beer, but talk to someone that can actually understand, and don't be afraid of it. I think, we've come to a place now where mental health it's not a taboo kind of topic where it's not one of those things that we kind of don't want to talk about anymore, and I encourage people, if someone does come to you to talk about their mental health, then don't treat it as don't see it as a small thing. If someone's able to reach out to you and actually express something to you about their mental health, it takes courage, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of needs to be respected and treated with care. And so, yeah, it's, highly encourage people, if they do have someone willing enough to reach out to them and ask them for help, please, offer that in some way, whether it's just lending an ear, whether it's just checking in on them the next day, whether it's steering them in the right direction or encouraging them to seek professional help. It's all important. So, but no, it's been an amazing opportunity, and I loved having a chat with you, and thank you for the work you do and providing this podcast for people to hear and to hopefully maybe get something out of, and it can help them. And it wouldn't be possible without people like yourself. So yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity.
No, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to come on. I I feel so blessed, and I think what I wanted to say to that, when you said if someone comes to you with a mental health issue or they want to have a chat, they should feel good about themselves because they are seen as a safe person for someone who's going through that, and they should like you said, just do the right thing and not feel like it's a burden, but actually feel blessed that someone's come to you with their problems, because it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot to voice any concerns, especially mental health. So I completely agree with you. And thank you for coming on and sharing your story, because I know that so many people get so much out of it. And the whole reason I started this was because of veteran and first responder suicide, and I couldn't hear any voices of people that had gone through it to help others that might be having a tough time and might be at their, rock bottom. So I really appreciate you coming on and giving that perspective, especially you're my first Raffy. So I'm so excited that you
Cool.
could come on. Yeah. So thank you so much. If but people want to get involved with Invictus, how can they do that in any capacity?
Yeah, so we have regional managers across the country. Where at the moment we are not in Tasmania and Northern Territory, but we are in every other state. So the best way to connect in and finding out what's going on, we have a website, but each respective kind of state has their own Facebook group. So
Okay.
for mine, it's just Invictus Australia Hunter and Northern New South Wales. We have the Southern New South Wales one, and then there's Invictus Australia Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, and Victoria. So looking up those Facebook groups, they keep, that's where we kind of put all of our relevant information for that area. And then there's also a Sydney one, sorry. But, connecting in there. So once you go into those groups, you'll see who the respective manager is by the post. You can reach out by messenger. We're pretty active on that. There's our email addresses on most of the flyers that are around. That we have a support inbox that you can email that will go to one of our staff members, and then it'll get directed to the right person. So if someone in Coffs Harbour, sends an email, it'll come through to me. Someone in South Australia, it'll go down south. So the respective person gets it, and then they'll get in contact with you. And then we got a monthly kind of email newsletter, I guess, that goes out. So out on our website, you can sign up to that. It just keeps you up to date with everything happening across, the Invictus Games and the adaptive sports program that happens, that everyone kind of knows about with Prince Harry and all of that. And then it also keeps you up to date with all the community work that the regional managers are looking after for the rest of the veterans who, don't get to go to the games.
Yeah, amazing. And I'll get those Facebook links, and we'll chuck them on the podcast as well, so people can find it nice and easy. But thank you so, so much for coming on. It's been a joy, and I really appreciate you sharing your story, because I know that people are going to get something out of it.
Yeah, no worries at all. And it's been a pleasure, and to be the first Raffy, it's great. So yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss any new ones. We release fresh content every Tuesday. And while you're there, take a moment to leave us a review. I would genuinely appreciate your thoughts. Don't forget to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Tactical Yoga Australia, and share this episode with your friends, family, and workmates to spread inspiration. Your support means the world. My name is Rosie Skeen. Join me again next week for another empowering and positive episode of Triumph Beyond Trauma. Until then, be kind to your mind and trust in the magic of your consistent and positive efforts. Triumph beyond your trauma is closer than you think. Have the best week.